You know, when I set out making this channel, I always told myself I wasn't going to do any videos about Doctor Who. I know, even though I'm English and all we talk about is Doctor Who, Brexit, and drinking delicious Lipton's tea made in our Panasonic microwaves. You can really taste the radiation. But I've always just felt like everyone has always had Doctor Who covered. I mean, there just wasn't anything that I really felt like I needed to say about it. But then...
If the BBC wants to meet it, PC equality agenda, then create strong female roles, don't appropriate male roles.
I'll never watch a female Doctor Who. It's just not cricket.
Doctor Pooh, more like.
Oh boy, now I have a reason! I first started watching Doctor Who back with the relaunch in 2005, and I've watched it ever since, including going back to watch some of the original version of the show. It's had its ups and downs throughout the years, certainly, but it always keeps me coming back. This is probably due to having the best storytelling device that anyone has ever come up with, the TARDIS. A ship that can go literally anywhere in time and relative dimensions in space. I just got the name. You can do literally any story with it. Comedy, drama, horror, thriller, anything. Its greatest strength is its potential, and this past year I feel that the show really lived up to that potential. Season 11 of Doctor Who aired between the 7th of October and 9th of December 2018, with a special airing on New Year's Day 2019. It was put together by showrunner Chris Chibnall, and it starred Jodie Whittaker, Mandip Gill, Tosin Cole and Bradley Walsh. And it was...
Knives last week, guns this week, female political activists next week. What's next from the lefty bed-wetting writers? Gender-neutral Daleks? They already are gender-neutral.
Somewhat contentious. Personally, I loved it, but a hell of a lot of people responded to this very negatively. So I'm going to look at some of the criticisms that people levied at it, and for this I have plumbed the depths of the darkest corners of the known universe, the festering boil on the prolapsed anus of our society, the prongs on the plug that you just stepped on of life, the Daily Mail comment section and YouTube response videos. So, grab your puke buckets and lock up all your sharp objects as we figure out exactly why these people are so wrong about Doctor Who. So, just to be clear, I'm not saying that if you didn't like Season 11 of Doctor Who, you're immediately some sort of hateful monster with your opinions based on nonsense. That wouldn't be fair. I'm sure there are plenty of you out there who just genuinely didn't like it and have legitimate grievances with it. And that's fine, you're entitled to that opinion. We're just politely disagreeing. The only people that I really have a problem with are the ones who write stuff like this.
The next doc will be a curry burner and left-handed. Jesus.
So, with that out of the way, let's begin. And where better to start than with the Doctor herself. Before the beginning of Season 10, we were informed that it would be Peter Capaldi's final year in the role, and that a whole new creative team would be coming on. So, naturally, the question arose, who would take over the role of the Doctor? It could be anyone. Literally anyone. Though, let's be honest, most of us were expecting it to be another white dude. So then, when on the 16th of July 2017, we got this video, and found out that Jodie Whittaker would be the next Doctor, I was pretty darn pleased. I honestly didn't think we'd ever see a woman play the Doctor. It was always a possibility of the universe, but I had my doubts that anyone would want to take the risk, so it was a nice surprise. But as you might imagine, a certain portion of the internet did that thing that they do. If you watch this program, you're supporting the feminist discrimination and appropriation of male roles.
Another fine example of nutcase producers hijacking a popular TV series to push an agenda. Here's a thought, come up with a new show that fits your agenda. At least then you won't tank a good show.
Should that not be nurse, not Doctor, Lemafau?
But it's not like the Doctor can't possibly be a woman. We've seen male Time Lords regenerate into female ones before. The Master became a woman, and stupidly renamed herself to Missy, even though they said a few times that gender is not a construct that matters to Time Lords, so why would she give herself a gendered name change? Plus, there was this white guy who we saw regenerate into a black woman on screen. So there's precedence, is what I'm saying. But I feel like we all know that the real reason for this hire wasn't down to some fear of the series breaking its own law. It was because a bunch of people are really sexist.
She should be wearing high heels and a miniskirt. Something be to get the dads interested.
Ridiculous to turn the Doctor into a woman. PC madness, nothing more.
Why do these feminists want to act like men? They seem obsessed. Most of them shave their hair, they try to act manly but overdo it, and it just comes across arrogant. You would think the feminists would be celebrating all the feminine traits and strengths, but they belittle them. So much of what I found was people commenting purely on her appearance, either saying how attractive she is.
She's not bad looking though. Dress her up a bit sexy and I'd give it a try out with my sonic screwdriver, LOL.
Or more commonly, how attractive she isn't.
Why does she always have her mouth open? She looks gormless.
I do not wish to make Tadpole Volcano in Doctor Who Woman. Sorry, could you just repeat that last one again?
I do not wish to make Tadpole Volcano in Doctor Who Woman.
One more time?
I do not wish to make Tadpole Volcano in Doctor Who Woman.
Ugh, levels are off the chart. See, this is an issue pretty much any time the woman takes on a major role in something like this. She is only considered for how she looks, as that way you don't have to pay attention to anything she's doing, and can just say she did bad acting when pressed to display any actual opinion that isn't about your tadpole volcano. And I find it pretty gross that when discussing Jodie Whittaker in the role, so many people's thought is just that she needs to have bigger boobs. A common thing I saw across a lot of the comments I read was one essentially saying, "Why don't you get your own character, females? Why do you have to take ours? What's next, a female James Bond?" Like, seriously, a lot of people make the female James Bond comparison. Well, 1, sure, do a woman as James Bond, cast Gillian Anderson, it'll be great. 2, you have to ask yourself, what is a better move for getting a woman into the lead role in a major sci-fi program? Making a whole new show, having to sell that to people, convince them to give it a chance, while no doubt fighting with an inadequate budget and probably just getting called a rip-off of something else when it comes out? Or using an established show with a built-in audience? People are always going to be watching Doctor Who, so it just makes more sense to use that. And people will say, well, that's just using a popular series to push some sort of feminist agenda. Yes. Yes, it is. It's just a smart move. You want to get your message out there, you put it to the largest audience possible. And here, the message is simply, a woman can do it as well. Or, as the tagline for the marketing said, it's about time. Or, as Colin Baker once so pithily put it,
Change, my dear. And it seems not a moment too soon.
And then, when the series finally began, how was she? Really good, I thought. She's captured a spark with the Doctor that I've felt has been missing for a while. She's incredibly hopeful. Under Stephen Moffat's time with the show, the character had become a bit more dour and serious, and it was a breath of fresh air to see her enjoying herself so much again. If there's any moment from this series that really sums up what I love so much about her performance as the Doctor, it's this one from the episode Arachnids in the UK.
Do you want to come for tea at mine?
Definitely.
Yes, I would. Thanks.
Tea at Yaz's. Never been for tea at Yaz's.
She views the mundane as exciting as the wondrous. Tea at her friends is as interesting to her as anything she's ever seen in the universe. To me, that is the Doctor in a nutshell, and I love the ways that Jodie brought that out. People have described her as being manic, childish, and over the top, which is all true, but I don't personally think that's a bad thing. This is the Doctor who gets super excited about apple bobbing, talks about sofas and likes wellies. But when it comes to it, she can bring the more serious moments too. Almost like she's a good actor who auditioned and got the part over like hundreds of other people or something. I'll be honest, I was sold on Jodie Whittaker from her first...
Oh, brilliant.
And I'm glad that she did such a great job. But of course, it wasn't just Jodie Whittaker that these people had a problem with, so why don't we take a look at some of the episodes? Now, if I were to try and give a full breakdown of every episode of this series, we would be here way too long. So I'm just going to limit myself to talking about 2. These being Episode 3, Rosa, and Episode 6, Demons of the Punjab. But as it stands for the rest of the series, here's some quick thoughts. Great intro episode, got me to care about all the characters very quickly. A solid adventure with some flawed moments, but the new version of the theme slaps. Oh my lord, I felt feelings. Okay, but a bit sloppy. Loved the Be Sure scene at the end. Again, just okay. The Pating is cute and people upset over the pregnant man are hilarious. One of the best episodes the show has ever done. Great politically charged start with a rubbish cop-out ending. Alan Cumming is being the gayest and I am here for it. The Frog Universe is genius, you Philistines. A solid, more low-key finale. Pretty great. Managed to make a Dalek scary again, but what was with that scene with the family? Overall, I found that the writing of the series was more focused on the characters. Mostly the arc with Ryan and Graham coming to terms with being a part of each other's lives following the death of Ryan's grandmother and Graham's wife, Grace. You see Ryan slowly warm up to Graham, after he spends a lot of time putting in the effort to try and make their relationship work. This is what the finale was about. Graham risking everything the two had worked towards by trying to kill Grace's murderer, and Ryan convincing him that he shouldn't. People who wanted bigger end-of-the-universe stakes seemed to miss the high personal stakes that I thought this was about. But anyway, onto the episodes I actually wanted to talk about. So, in the episodes Rosa and Demons of the Punjab, the Doctor and her friends are travelling to periods of Earth's history where there is a lot of prejudice and political unrest going on. Namely, America during segregation and the partition of India, or only 64 years ago and only 72 years ago respectively. In case you somehow don't know, Rosa Parks famously one night refused to move from her seat on the bus to let white passengers sit down. It is a monumental event that is credited with inspiring the bus boycotts of the period, and Rosa Parks is held up as a hugely important figure by the American civil rights movement. The episode sees an alien criminal travelling to that time to try and stop Rosa Parks from carrying out this simple act of defiance against systemic oppression. Now the Doctor and friends have to make sure that she does get on that bus, and that history goes the way it's supposed to. Now, I found a number of things remarkable about this episode. Firstly, Doctor Who is talking about racism. Openly and honestly, without any metaphor or coding. We have a conversation between Ryan and Yaz, where they talk about how things still haven't changed all that much even in the present day.
It's not like Rosa Parks wipes out racism from the world forever. Otherwise, how come I get stopped way more by the police than my white mates?
I get called a Paki when I'm sorting out a domestic or a terrorist on the way home from the mosque.
Yeah.
And the villain? His reason for wanting to stop Rosa is purely because he's a racist. Not some sci-fi version where he's prejudiced against the people with blue skin from SETI Alpha 5. No, he just hates black people.
And your kind won't get above themselves.
My kind?
Yeah, your kind.
I am thrilled that Doctor Who had the courage to talk about something like that. I never thought I would see the day where they would. Good for them. The other aspect of this that I really enjoyed was that the Doctor wasn't a white saviour in a story about race. She helped, no doubt, but there's no point where they have to tell Rosa where to go or what to do. She gets to the bus by herself. It's all still her decision and her choice. In fact, this episode hits you with the most upsetting twist on a white saviour. When the Doctor and her friends have to stay sat down while Rosa gets told to move. If they stand up and get off the bus, then there'll be enough seats, and Rosa Parks won't become the figurehead she was meant to be. To save the day, the Doctor has to be complicit in racism, and that is a hard thing to watch, but so powerfully done. But of course, some people just had awful responses to it.
The BBC, a mouthpiece for cultural Marxism straight out of the Frankfurt School, rewriting history through their warped, politically correct goggles, trying to demonise historical figures who do not meet their progressive narrative, demonise conservative white people wherever possible, now shooting this sick agenda through the medium of Doctor Who, as well past the sell-by-date concept that should have been giving a Viking funeral years ago.
Yes, the Nazi conspiracy theory cultural Marxism there, in an episode of Doctor Who about Rosa Parks, and the conservative white people they're upset the show is demonising are the racists who made black people sit on the back of the bus? Are you sure this is the hill you want to die on? Then Demons of the Punjab is set during the partition of India. Now, I imagine this is one that less people out there will be as familiar with, so I'll do my best to explain it, but bear in mind that this is a complex issue. I am giving an extremely abridged version because this isn't a history video, and I may well not have some of it exactly right. So, England had colonised India with several companies, primarily the East India Trading Company, battling over dominance of it with other countries since the early 1600s, until in 1858 control was passed to the Crown and we instated a British Raj as ruler of the country. This was, like all colonialism, a very bad thing, and it continued until, following the Second World War, we ended British rule in India. So India was to have its independence, but then the issue arose of the division of religion in the country. Hindus and Sikhs made up the majority of the country with around 80% of the population, and Muslims made up most of the rest. So, areas that were heavily populated with Muslims were decided to be a separate dominion, which they called Pakistan. This only served to further stir up the animosity between the religious divide, especially since the plan was put into motion with less than 6 months to prepare it. Generally, it was a mess, and it led to a lot of violence and people having to leave their lifelong homes, and the effects of it can still be felt in both countries to this day. In the episode of Doctor Who about it, Yaz decides she wants to visit her grandmother when she's young, as she doesn't know a lot about that part of her life. And when your new best friend has a time machine, it seems like the logical course of action, really. They arrive at the border of India and Pakistan on the 14th of August 1947, when the partition is set to take place at midnight. Yaz's grandmother Umbreen is about to be married to Prem, who is not Yaz's grandfather, but she's a Muslim and he's a Hindu, and his brother Manish, who's becoming increasingly radicalised by the anti-Muslim rhetoric building in the country, is starting to become violent, ultimately leading to Prem's death as he defends his new family as they escape. Also, there's some aliens there, but they're not really that important. It shows how the uncertainty and anger of the time tore families apart. By keeping the focus on this one small group, it makes clear the impact of a countrywide event. That the way Manish talk strongly reflects a lot of online angry young white men is just a very nice touch added into it. But what were the particular issues that people took with the episodes I'm highlighting here?
PC tripe rewriting history to their own agenda, not what Doctor Who is about.
More terrible tosh. Once this show was sci-fi, now it's a PC history lesson. The sooner the show is scrapped, the better.
It should be a bit of escapism, not a weekly lecture. It's crap. I couldn't read that one out.
Ah, we're pushing more agendas, I see, by accurately showing history that happened. Now, I know these are uncomfortable moments in our history, and closer in our past than I think most of us would like to admit, but putting stories surrounding them into a family adventure show like Doctor Who is important. We should teach kids about the more shameful aspects of our past, so that they won't be doomed to repeat any of them. While you may think it's pushing a PC agenda, it's much more about educating a younger generation in the stuff we shouldn't be allowed to forget. I also feel that these episodes mark a change in the approach to the historical stories the show is doing. Up until this point, when they've gone back in time, it's always been focused on some alien threat trying to conquer the world or something. Be it weird vampire fish ladies in Venice, or like a big wasp with Agatha Christie or whatever. The history was just a background to put the monster of the week in. But here, the history matters. It is at the forefront. It is what the stories revolve around. In Rosa, it's all about making sure she is on that bus at that time. In Demons, the aliens are there as a red herring to make you think it's going to be like the old style, but instead they are purely there to observe and to honour the lonely dead. Fitting, since it aired on Remembrance Sunday, I think. This, to me, just feels like objectively better storytelling. Make there a reason for the setting, not just we wanted the Doctor to hang out with Shakespeare and also hear some aliens, but instead an actual message, a motivation to going when they went. So, with some of the most important stuff to look at out of the way, why don't we look at some of the most inane stuff? Now, the ratings of the show have been a big sticking point with a lot of its detractors, probably because it's a seemingly concrete bit of evidence. If less people are watching the show, then surely the show is a failure. So when people like Clownfish TV or The Oldest Nerd or any of the many, many others say things like this,
Doctor Who ratings have dropped off a cliff,
then that is conclusive proof that the show is bad. So why don't we look at the ratings, see what the decline actually is, and we'll be working with the total consolidated ratings, i.e. the closest we have to an accurate number of the ratings. So the season opened to 10.54 million views, which is the strongest the show has had for a Doctor's debut episode since the show came back with Christopher Eccleston in 2005, which is pretty good. But then things started to drop. The series hit a low point in episode 9 of 6.24 million views. So it dropped over 4 million viewers in just 9 weeks. Isn't that terrible? Clearly the show is doomed. Well, no. Every other series of Doctor Who has dropped viewers as it went along. The first series started out with 10.81 million viewers, but it hit a low of 6.81 million. All of David Tennant's series went through similar declines, the same with Matt Smith, even worse with Peter Capaldi hitting lows of 4.82 million. So this new series was better than its immediate predecessor, and about on par with all the other series before that. Hardly the disaster it's being painted out as. But what about the special? All the previous Christmas specials brought in around 10 million views, except for a few of Peter Capaldi's episodes. Sorry Peter, you deserved better. And the New Year's special, Resolution, only brought in about 7 million. Surely that's proof of the show's lack of popularity. Again, not really. The difference between New Year's Day and Christmas Day viewing figures is always going to be pretty big, but besides that, the viewing figures were down across the board on New Year's Day this year, and Doctor Who was the 4th highest watched show of the night, and about on par with the last couple of specials. So the ratings issue is solved pretty quickly when you use what we in the business refer to as easily verifiable facts. So, a lot of people seem to struggle with the accents in this series. Like, I genuinely saw a lot of people online saying that they couldn't understand what the Doctor and her friends were saying because of the thick Yorkshire accents. Hey kids, it's Missy by Gum here, and today I'll be dressing up as a modern Britain feminist protester. Later we'll be going tuck nil to play around with some steampunk gear. Smashing.
I watched for about 15 minutes, but the woman's voice drove me up a wall. I moved on.
She is like some bizarre female incarnation of Sean Bean playing Sharp, which works about as well as an udder on a bull. The universe is an estimated 14 billion light years across. Do the BBC really expect viewers to believe that every species and culture that may have evolved in it are liberal, cultural, Marxist, feminist zealots for the Northern Act? I couldn't get through that one.
This is typical of what's happening on our television today. It's almost compulsory to have a horrible Northern accent, which I find so grating. Just listen to our radios. Even Radio 2 now they got that Northern Vicar on. It's a shame a nice speaking English clear accent is no longer used. This country has gone to the dogs and I am ashamed. I personally didn't have this problem, but that's probably because I'm from the north of England and I'm very used to accents like this. As it stands though, they are some very approachable accents. Like, if you think this is a thick accent,
I would have.
you should meet some of my family. I kind of class this as a bit of elitism on the part of English viewers, because Yorkshire accents are more often associated with the working class. So when you hear it in TV, it's usually being used in a caricature of that class. So this was, once again, a refreshing bit of representation, where our major supporting characters are the northern working class. And yes, I know that Graham is from the south, don't at me, compared to previous series of the show where it's mostly been people from London. Because, as it turns out, the UK is more than just one city. And now that I think we've all had quite enough, let's wrap this up. Doctor Who Season 11 was really good. There were certainly flaws. I mean, there's no such thing as a perfect TV show. Well, except the Herbs, of course. But the outpourings of vitriol that were levelled against it were just sort of ludicrous to behold, and leads me to feel that a lot of it were coming from insincere places of sexism and racism at the base of it. Because by having a female lead, supporting characters of colour and non-toxic masculinity, and by using its position as one of the most popular shows on TV to really put notions that historically we have done very bad things to the fore, it was bound to upset people who don't share those views, and like to shout about how they're being forced into this stuff by the politically correct BBC. The phrase that came up over and over while I was looking at these comments was box ticking. The idea that this show was put together in the way it was purely to meet up to some quota of political correctness that the BBC has been pressured to meet. The people in the Daily Mail comments section really hate the PC BBC, but I see it more as the show evolving to keep up with the needs of a modern TV audience. We want to see more diverse stories from unique points of view that we haven't seen before. Less of the same old stuff that we've seen all our lives. Challenge us. Change things. Put in more sentient universes that take the form of frogs. This season of Doctor Who made me a fan of the show again after I'd been getting pretty disillusioned with it for a while. I think that they did wonderful things and I can't wait to see what they do with it in the future. Even if I have to wait for a whole year for there to be more episodes, I mean, come on, what the hell is that about? Why do I have to be patient?
It's so PC, I'm getting PC diabetes. It's actually patronizing. How to finish off a national treasure of a program, and I don't use that term loosely.
So I couldn't find a place in the script for this one. I just kind of wanted to show off that the Daily Mail can't use apostrophes, and it turns them into upside down question marks. And plus, I wanted to hear what it would sound like when Matthew and Billy tried to read those.
PC diabetes. My favourite police officer.
Plot hole: if female Doctor Who becomes pregnant and then is forced to regenerate as a male, what happens to the unborn child? Does this unlikely evolutionary paradox affect all people from Doctor Who's homeworld?
Whatever next? Postman Patricia, Thomasina the Tank Engine, and Jade Bond? What about Mark Croft Tomb Raider, or even Martin Poppins? BBC equals bonkers broadcasting company. Madness. R.I.P. the Doctor. Thomasina the Tank Engine. Thomasina is not a name.
People really love this show.
Thank you so much for watching this video all about Doctor Who. Let me know what you thought of it in a comment below. Click up here to subscribe and click over here for more videos. Big thanks to Maker Maddox, whose channel is right here, for voicing some of the comments in this video. That was amazing. And also thanks to my little brother Matthew. Click down in the description to find a link to his podcast Electric Boogaloo, where he talks about bad movies. I guess that's it.